Welcome to Whaler Talk, hosted by the Hartford Whalers Booster Club. You know, it's been a couple weeks now. We've had a bunch of history with the Hartford Whalers, New England Whalers. Howard Baldwin, the CEO of Whalers Sports and Entertainment, has been on here. We've had Senior Vice President of Business Operations, Mark Willand, on a phone interview with us. He was kind enough to join us last minute, and he did a phenomenal job. So tonight we figured, after listening to all this history, we would take a little trip down memory lane. About halfway through, we're going to throw you a nice highlight from the 1986-87 season, Whaler Mania, so that you all know what was and what can happen again if Whaler fans, Connecticut Whale fans, NHL, AHL fans alike go and populate the XL Center and support Hartford hockey for what it is. It's something very special, and for over 35 years, Hartford has been a major league city for ice hockey. Tonight, I'm here with Peter Hindle from theexaminer.com, and we have all of our information, so we're going to get started with a little trip down memory lane.
Yeah, it's a good aspect to bring up what it was like for hockey in Hartford when the NHL was here. If you go to the current NHL games, you'll see that somewhere between 4,000 and 10,000 people on any given night. Mostly it's smaller, so the arena looks empty. But if you go back to some of these highlights and look at when the Whalers were just getting over 500 and we're just getting into the playoffs, I mean, the place is packed. I mean, every seat is sold because at the time, they were in the NHL. They were competing with big markets like Boston, Montreal, New York, and at the same time, they had a core of players that NHL-wise brought some serious talent to a small market team. We were just looking over some of the numbers in games played. Well, Ron Francis has got something in common with Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth had 714 home runs, so Ron Francis played 714 games for the Whalers. He is the current leader of players that have played for Hartford. He did play here for 10 seasons, and unfortunately was traded. If that trade had not happened, who knows how many games he would have been here for. He was, a bona fide Hall of Famer without doubt.
And everyone today, even today, talks about Ron Francis as Ronnie Franchise.
Right.
He was what Whaler fans knew as Mr. Hockey in the Hartford,
the Hartford market.
The Hartford tradition, the Whaler tradition.
Yeah.
So then you get into who were the hockey gods of early on. We have the Rickleys, we have Davy Keons. Even before that, you had Chris Abrahamson, Tommy Abrahamson. The brothers. There's a Swedish connection there.
Yeah.
When you get into this type of tradition, it's very important that rebuilding the market also means rebuilding the tradition that started back in 1974, 75.
Yeah. It was a team that actually was not really supposed to be here, and then it was here. And I mean, to me, from my memories, it just took off right off the bat. It wasn't even like hockey was new to Connecticut. Everybody was probably Bruin fans back then, and to have their own team and now to be going shoulder to shoulder with Boston and New York is something to be proud of. I mean, this is our community. This is our little market here is taking on the big guys, and they were doing well. They were doing really well for those seasons where Howard Baldwin says he was in the black. I mean, he was making money.
But you look at the attendance. You look at and yes, when you go to Wikipedia, you go to some of these other websites, and what they say we had tremendous support. What happened? Where did all these people go? Hockey fans in Hartford, in Connecticut, did not just leave. Right. We still have hockey fans here. When you get, I looked at some of the stats this afternoon, and you have 10,000, 12,000. It's amazing. Even when they were away at some other venues, they were attracting. And we talk about baseball. The Yankees, wherever the Yankees go, everyone goes to see the Yankees.
Right.
I'm a Boston fan, so I'd still like to see the Yankees. You just root for whoever's playing them. But you get in there and you sit there and you watch, and all these people. You go to Baltimore. Baltimore might not have a great team, but they sell out every single time. The Red Sox, the Yankees come, and it could have been because of the Whalers and their record back in the 70s and early 80s.
Oh yeah, very very popular team from when they hit that mark in '86, '87. I mean, they really did to to say it was a special time in Hartford is an understatement. That's for sure.
And that's I said this to Howard when he was on. When you sit there and say, what do you bottle? You bottle that.
Yeah.
86, 87 was the perfect experiment.
Right.
Of well, first of all, Connecticut fans.
Right.
If you don't have a winner, nobody's coming to your games.
No.
And we see that today with UConn as well.
Mm-hmm.
UConn didn't have these paramount seasons like they used to.
Right.
And all of a sudden, the attendance drops. People start wiggling away, and then you're like, where'd they go?
Right.
This is very important that people support the clubs. The Yankees didn't have winning seasons all the time. The
Right.
Red Sox didn't. Red Sox, they suffered for years.
Yes.
But people went to those games and
Right.
they supported their club.
Right.
It's our club, and that's the most important thing about this.
Yeah, yeah. I just think that I've always used UConn as kind of a backdrop. I mean, when you think about UConn football just 10 to 12 years ago, playing maybe in front of 1,500 people on campus. Now
On a slope of a hill.
Yeah, right.
right.
Now they're a team that has a 38,000 seat arena, and when they're in the mix, like they were just a few years ago, that building's sold out. And maybe it's only 8 times a year, but you take 8 times 40 or 38,000, and you're coming up with 240,000 people coming out to see a football team that maybe isn't the best in the country, but is in the mix. And if we have a hockey team that's in the mix, making the playoffs. You're going to see that type of attendance, especially with a market like Hartford that is a Green Bay, like Howard calls it, in the terms of its size. In other words, people in Green Bay is not exactly a large metro area, and Hartford is, from a standpoint, when you're sitting between Boston and New York, we're the bridge between the two cities. It's good for those cities on travel dates. The Rangers and the Bruins are for it. They would like to see a Whalers team back here because this way they don't have to send players out to play teams in Vancouver or Kansas City and they like the rivalry. And there was a rivalry here, more with Boston because that was who's in your face.
Really, that was when you bring up the Green Bay aspect of us being the Green Bay of hockey.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that I would challenge our fans, hockey fans, to do is my email is Whaler, WHALER 13 @gmail.com. And what I need is for you guys to email me and tell me, would you guys, as Whaler fans, as hockey fans from the state of Connecticut, be willing to buy stock for a AHL or NHL club if that was what it took to bring this hockey club back or the NHL back to Hartford? I think, when you look at solutions to the problem, as Howard says,
Sure.
We have to have a solution when the NHL has a problem.
Right.
I think the throwing it out there as a stock option would be a neat idea. Howard already put this huge revitalization together as a step in the right direction, and now we have to sit there and
Right.
figure out are people on board.
Sure. And one of the great things about the stock option piece is, for you guys that have the broken heart still, if you own a part of the team, no matter how small it is, and a bunch of us do, they're not going anywhere.
Right, exactly.
They belong here. So, that's just an interesting option that's worked in the NFL. It worked very well for Green Bay. And if it could work in Green Bay, if it could work in Winnipeg, they get a team back.
Exactly.
Why can't it work in Hartford, which is I keep beating that drum. It's 30th largest market. There's 30 NHL teams.
It said it in the paper the other day. Hartford is the fastest growing market in the country.
Yeah.
The fastest growing, and we don't have a major league sports team here.
No.
Again, I understand people's frustration about our hockey, the NHL club not being here. But the only way we're going to be noticed is if you get into those seats and you support Howard and the employees over at Whalers Sports and Entertainment to get to the games, because really it's been 15 years coming up on April 13th, and Faniversary will take place again without a hockey club, a major league hockey club.
Sure.
Yes, the AHL is professional hockey. I'm not throwing any grenades at anybody here. It's I enjoy it. It's great. I'm glad it's here. It's very affordable. So there's really no excuse for nobody to come.
No.
The neat thing about the Bruins, since I know you like them so much, is when the Whalers were coming to Hartford or to Connecticut, they had to drop their name if they were going to be included into the NHL. They had to drop New England from their name, which is I guess all right. We got the hockey club here.
I
in
never
Hartford.
knew that, so that makes some sense. So Boston didn't want to compete with the regionalization of the name,
right?
As it were. And believe it or not, I mean, to me, Hartford Whalers, it just rolls off the tongue. So.
It does, and with the logo and everything, it's just such an iconic logo.
It's kind of like, they struck gold at that time, and the platform, the blueprint is already there for the team, the name, the logo. It already has a history. It's got fans of old. It's got fans of new. If you've seen the apparel they're wearing on the streets, so it's a very doable thing, but it needs support. It needs people behind it, and it needs fans, in the seats to. You need to reach those guys with big pockets. You need to show them that there's viability here, that there's dollars here. We've already proven that Hartford has the most disposable income of just about any major city. So.
Right.
The money's here, the people here, the passion is here. We're just looking for the right fit. As Howard says, we want to be the answer. Hartford wants to be the answer to a problem.
A potential problem with the NHL. There's going to be a lot of moving around, and that's where we have to be ready. Mm-hmm. When we get back to the history of the Whalers, you have names like Ted Green, Rick Lee, Mike Rogers, Dave Keon, Ron Francis, Randy Ladouceur, great defenseman. Yeah. Now he's working for those Canadians. Pat Verbeek, Shanahan, who's now the discipline, NHL discipline man, and of course Kevin Dineen, Mark Johnson from the USA team. These are all captains throughout the years. That is part of our history.
Sure, and I mean there's a bunch of little things in it that are unique. Like there's 11 captains for the Hartford Whalers. The last one was Kevin Dineen.
That's phenomenal.
Number 11. There's a lot of interesting. It's only one year where we didn't have a captain, and that was in 1991 when Francis was stripped of his captaincy by Rick Lee, and then shortly after that he was traded, and what is the darkest moment in Hartford Whalers history.
That's right. Ronnie Franchise off to win a Stanley Cup.
So we were going to go into some of the things that prior to the Whalers, there was the New England Whalers when they were in the WHA. I actually never saw that. Were you ever at a WHA game?
I was at one game, and it's recently been aired on CPTV, and it was the 1975 game of the New England Whalers versus the Russians. I came to town. It was the day after Christmas. Yeah. And my best friend, his father had season tickets, and part of his season tickets was he got the ticket at a game. Right. And we were sitting 7 rows up where the Whalers shot twice, and it was great. You got to see the New England Whalers with the Brass Bonanza against what everyone feared is the best team in the world with Trekiak in goal. Yeah. And I always had a problem with the coach. I forgot his name, but he was always in front. I hope the guy stops spitting. You sit there and this guy's sitting in front of all these guys, and they're coming in, and I'm like, geez, that's pretty gross. I hope the heck he's going to the back of the bench soon.
Yeah, that was a unique thing, and I've seen Mark Wallon post some comments on Facebook where he said that I guess the New England Whalers were really shorthanded that day. I don't think they had Rick Lay. That they didn't have some of their good players, and I don't think at that particular time that they were even that great of a team. I don't know what year that was, but they weren't even in the mix. But the great thing about it was this Russian team had just gotten off a plane, and Hartford was one of their first stops. And here they are. They lose to the Hartford Whalers, and the Hartford Whalers are. The New England Whalers. They're standing on top of the world because they just beat the Russians.
That's right. What a boost. Yeah. And when you get into the history of who was where, you look at Brad Selwood, Rick Lee, like you said, Rick Lee was in there, Davey Keon. But then, look at the announcer for WVIT. It was Bob Newmeyer, who's now up in the Boston area. I think he's a sportscaster up there. Yeah. But it's great to see how we've progressed to where we currently are now. We have Ken Jernander's number being retired. Right. We had Blaine Stoughton, Pat Verbeek, Brian Leach. These are all of Connecticut's hockey players. And for us, it's about hockey pride and hockey tradition. So we'll be back after this highlight with the 1986-87 season of Whaler Mania.
When the 1986-87 National Hockey League regular season started, the fans and media geared up for another year in the Adams Division. The always formidable conference foes, the Boston Bruins, Buffalo Sabres, Quebec Nordiques and defending Stanley Cup champion Montreal Canadiens looked as tough as ever. No one knew what the season would be like. Were the Whalers just lucky in the 1986 Stanley Cup playoffs when they swept Adams Division champion Quebec in the opening round? Was it luck when the pesky Whalers took Montreal to overtime of the 7th and decisive game of the 1986 division finals? At the end of this regular season, it was obvious that the Whalers' third NHL Stanley Cup playoff appearance last year was no fluke. The Whalers were once again one of the league's most improved teams. This season, the team jumped from 11th place in the overall standings all the way to 4th. At the same time, the club won its first ever Adams Division Championship. In all the preseason polls, most of the so-called hockey experts picked the Whalers to finish no higher than 3rd in the Adams Division.
And we're back. I hope you enjoyed watching that highlight of the 86-87 season and some of the goals that were scored. You saw the crowds. They were there. Those weren't cut in. So, we haven't seen a crowd like that at a hockey game in a long time. But that was part of the fervor, some of the fever that was affecting this town at that time. There was belief that the Whalers, had they gotten past Montreal, would have played the Rangers in the conference finals, and then they would have faced Calgary in the finals. And I think at that particular point in the Eastern Conference Finals, they could have beaten that Ranger team. Calgary would have been a little tougher. They may have gotten a chance on Calgary. I'm not really sure. But we were going to go into some of the things that for that 86-87 season, what was going on. The Whalers were in a tight race with Montreal. I remember that I believe Montreal only finished a few points behind them. The Whalers that year won 43 wins, 30 losses, and 7 ties for 93 points. Their first Adams Division championship. It also was they were the 4th best team in the league with a record like that. It was pretty impressive stuff. Short-lived, maybe, but the point was it was there, and it was there for a few more years before Baldwin had to sell his portion of the team, and then when bad trades happen, attendance drops. And
you also had a lot of issues with investors who were not straight and narrow. You had the Colonial Realtors.
Right.
That was a huge problem with the investments. Now you're under a black cloud of what's really going on with the organization. Fortunately, that was a short-lived thing, but they never rebounded from that. And when you get into running a business, as Howard told us, it's very complicated.
Right.
He said his heart was broken when he had to sell his portion of the club, and that's why he came back to do this. You talk about scoring, and of course Ron Francis leads everything with 714 goals, and then you have Dineen, Rogers, Webster, Verbeek, Howe, Stoughton, who was his number was retired the other night, and then Larry Plow, Sanderson, and then Ray Ferraro, who's now an analyst on I believe NBC Sports or freelance. So you get into these are the people that put the biscuit in the basket for us, and when you see them out and about now, it was Davey Tippett the other day got his 400th win as a coach. And someone went up to him and they posted on one of the social media sites. I saw him. I said something to him, and he goes, "You're from Hartford?" He goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he says, he started humming Brass Bonanza to him. He goes, "Okay, yeah, you're from Hartford." So it was really funny that, Dave Tippett finally sat there and said, "Oh, okay, yep, I heard it." And Mike Milbury, he despises that song. So it's hilarious when they bring up the Whalers and the Brass Bonanza, and all of a sudden Milbury's like, "I hate that song." so it has an effect on everybody.
He could be pretty despisable himself sometimes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right?
He was part of that goon squad they had back in Boston.
There was some good battles. I would think that, even when I think about back to the times when the Whalers used to, another interesting point that I was going to bring up was they were the least penalized team in 86-87.
Yes, they were.
However, when Boston came to town, there was quite a mixing of, dropping of the gloves on the ice as well as in the stands a couple of times. It used to be that one of the things that Boston and Ranger fans liked was that they could see their team in Hartford. If they were a Connecticut Ranger or Bruin fan, they would come and they would be in those top, upper seats. So there's there's just a lot of hockey fans in Hartford that are just more appreciative of the NHL than they are of the AHL.
Well, that night I was very appreciative of the Hartford Police Department for taking all those Bruins fans out of there and holding them at least overnight for one night in court.
Yeah.
When the last game I went to was a Bruins game. I took my father-in-law at the time, and we went out and there was a drunk Bruins fan next to us, and he ended up urinating right there in the stands. Wow. And the next thing you know, here comes the cops, and they dragged him right down the stairs, and out they went. But the best story I heard was from a former employee of the Hartford Whalers. Was when the Bruins came to town, they went to get on their bus, and they had slashed all the tires. The fans got in there, and there was almost a brawl. The Bruins got off the bus, and I think it was.
Oh, wow.
I think this story was relived during the Whale Bowl because some of those players. Were on that bus that night, and it was hilarious to listen to. Wow. You know, these guys get all animated all over again, saying, "Yeah, you guys sliced the tires. There's almost a brawl outside the bus."
Yeah.
So hockey's changed a great deal, and we have a lot more gentlemen versus just goons out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, when we look back at some of the things that Hartford, when they did make the playoffs, they played 3 teams. They played Quebec twice, they played Boston twice, and they played Montreal 4 times. Now Montreal, unfortunately,
I hate that team.
Stuck it to them 4 times. 2 7-game series. I mean, it was pretty rough. But the Boston, they had a 7-game series and a 6-game series, and that was some good hockey because the teams were local. The Whalers were giving it to Cam Neely.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was some hard
you had
fought
to remember
stuff.
Boston had Middleton. You had Stan Jonathan, the big brawler. You had Milbury. You had Park, of course.
Right.
These guys were what made this hockey. Just like Rick Lee, Davey Keon, and our guys who started out the Whalers. This was what made hockey back then.
Right.
I remember watching on TV 38. Remember WSBK?
Yeah,
it was great.
Yeah.
We watched the games on a 1:00 game in the afternoon. You thought it was something special.
Yeah.
And I can remember. What was your favorite besides the Dineen goal? Everyone loves the Dineen goal.
Oh yeah.
What's a game to you that sticks out as a Whaler fan?
The one thing that sticks out to me, and it's unfortunately it's for Bruin fans, but it's in March of '87 when they were marching towards the division. There was a 10-3 game against Boston, and it's still in the record books. Ron Francis had 6 points that night.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just. I mean, the place was going crazy, and when we were out in the concourse, and this also reminded me of Howard's revitalization. The concourses, you think they're crowded now with 5,000 people, when there was 15,635 in the building, and they're all screaming, Bruins, give it to them. It was a special time. There was a good pride in the city. Most of the time the city's always ho-hum and everyone gets in and gets out as soon as they can. But at the same time, that time everybody it's game night. The Bruins are coming to town. We're here.
And I do believe what bothers me is people talk about when you go to a hockey game. Someone said this the other day, and I was like, really? He must have had a couple beverages before he talked to me because he was talking out of his behind. He sits there and he says, well, nobody goes to dinner before a hockey game. Well, where would you go before a hockey game? Yeah. Come on. If there's something that's going to entertain me in the city besides crime, go and have a nice dinner at one of these restaurants. Vaughn's is downtown. You got Max's downtown. Come on, you have some great restaurants downtown.
Right.
And yes, I'm forgetting some, and I apologize. But from where I've stood, these are great people, local restaurants. They need the business just as much as the Whale needs the business to put people in the seats. Those people, the Russian Ladies now open again. You have 4 floors. You have Coaches, Agave. Yep. We go back to the day when 86, 87 exited the Civic Center, and 15,000 people are jumping on cars out there. Yeah. And where'd they all go? Russian Lady. Yeah. Why? They had the patio up top.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Right.
Is the energy of our city. Mm-hmm. And the mayor was supposed to come on. He unfortunately called in sick that night. But this is something he needs to hear. And you need to write letters to the mayor, the governor, and to support hockey in Hartford and the local businesses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's important to try to bring something back to the city. We're always hammering sports. There's arts and entertainment districts as well, but we're just saying that one piece is missing for the city. Again, we're not knocking the AHL. It's great hockey.
Absolutely not.
Just this year alone, almost half a dozen players from the Connecticut Whales gone up and played in the NHL with the Rangers. We're just asking that, hopefully we can get a market here where our team here for this market, because that type of enthusiasm within the city brings dollars into the city. The infrastructures get better. Your roads are better.
It adds all the revenue to the city.
You get a couple parades out of it. I mean, nobody forget. I'm still waiting to find another city that threw a parade for a second-round loser in the playoffs. I mean, this city threw a parade because we took the Canadians
You said it right. They were second-round losers, but really, in everyone's heart, in Hartford, they were winners.
Right.
And really, who would... The guy at the parade, we marched in the St. Patty's Day parade, and some man, who I don't know, came running out of the crowd, and he grabbed the flag from us, and he said, I was the guy that drove the first truck in the parade and carried the Whalers. He was so proud of this that he was part of that parade for the second-round losers.
Right.
But you know what? Everyone looked at the Whalers as their team.
Yeah.
And yes, and now our team is the Connecticut Whale, and we need to support them. And when you get 11,000, when the rebranding happened, and people are, some of the comments are amusing, where you sit there and you say, well, it was just a rebranding. It's the same club. Yes, it is the same club.
Yeah.
But what did it do?
Yeah.
It brought people back.
Yeah.
You needed to shake things up a bit. Yes, it's the same club. Yes, it's the Rangers farm team. But you changed the name, you changed the colors, you put the brass bonanza back. It's a sense of ownership within our city.
Right.
It's a pride thing.
Right.
And yes, I totally agree. But I go to the games, I have a great time, and it's great hockey. And you're right. Look at Bickle the other night. They got into that scrap at the opening faceoff. He pummeled that guy.
Yeah.
They had six guys going, 8 guys going. It was awesome.
Yeah, he was pummeling guys here in Hartford, so we missed it. But I mean, so that's what it's all about, though. Is the rebrand brought some local themes back to the hockey market that was here. There was a bit of that Wolfpack era had created new fans, new Ranger fans. A lot of these young kids are Ranger fans because they didn't experience the Hartford Whalers, and they didn't get to experience that. But there's still a chance for Hartford. Hartford is a market that has a good shot at getting a team. Depending on how many troubled NHL franchises we see in the next couple of years.
Now the key is I want people to email me at jewhaler13 and at gmail.com and tell us what you think Hartford should do. What are some of the things you want to see Hartford do for the hockey, for us on Whaler Talk?
Right.
We want your feedback.
Sure.
This is a Hartford hockey show, and we want your feedback. So we'll catch you next time. Check you next time.
We'll check you next time.
And we'll see you next time on Whaler Talk. Thank you very much.